Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Reviewpoint podcast, coming to you from fanboysanonymous.com. I'm your host, the man who calls the shots over at Fanboys Anonymous, Tony Mango. And with me on the panel tonight, I have another fellow fanboy with me, Gabe Freemuth. Gabe, what's up?
Hey, Tony. How's it going? Doing just fine over here.
I'm doing a little bit worse now that I saw the target of this episode.
Yeah, I completely understand.
So if you have not read the title yet and you are curious about what that target is, first I'm going to tease you and not mention it. I'm going to tell you what Reviewpoint is about for the people that haven't seen the previous 2 episodes of Reviewpoint. Basically, it's pretty simple. We take a movie or a TV show or whatever the case may be for that episode, and we break it down bit by bit, piece by piece, and talk about whether something was a hit or a miss. Back and forth between the different topics. We might say the music was a hit in this because it was great, it was awesome. Hit basically translates to a good, miss translates to a bad. We don't really have any room for a middle ground there, so that's what kind of makes it fun, because you get to a point where you have to, gun to your head, pick whether it's a hit or a miss. And our target for this edition, Transformers 4 Age of Extinction.
Yeah.
Which, the first thing I have to say is, and this is before we get over our overall impressions, just a quick thing about the title. I did not think of this until the other day when fellow fanboy Jeff Penner was writing up his Week in Geek post, and he actually had a typo in there. It happens, whatever. I'm not criticizing him for that. But he had Edge of Extinction, and I was just like, man, that sounds like so much better of a title.
Yeah. Yeah.
It suits better, doesn't it, too? Like, instead of Age of Extinction.
What little plot the movie tries to fit in. Yes, I think Edge of Extinction, does have a nicer ring to it. Plus, you've got the alliteration, which is always fun.
Yeah, even Brink of Extinction would have worked better. Age of Extinction was like they came across that Age of Ultron movie that's coming out for Avengers, and they were just like, Age of! We got to use Age before that.
Use the word age.
Right. And now we're going to see a whole bunch of movies that are Age of whatever, and we're going to get to a point where it's like Age of the Revolution, of the Rise, of the Fallen, right. Of the, like... Terrible.
Someone spare us.
Right. So, terrible is the word for the day, and we're going to go through our overall first impressions of the movie, then we're going to start going through the plot structure, the writing of the movie, break down the characters, talk about different things like the special effects, the action, the music, and any of the other kind of things that we want to bring out there. And then wrap it all up, tell you maybe our opinions changed, maybe they didn't. People can defend back and forth, and you can end up liking a movie better or hating it more, depending on the case. But I got a feeling we're going to agree on a lot of misses here. So
I agree with that.
So overall, first impressions, what did you think about the movie?
I have to say, just to set things up a little bit, it had been a while since I'd gone to the theater to see a movie. It had been... Like, I had seen Spider-Man 2 very late, but that was the last movie I saw in theaters, but that was like a month prior. So I was ready, I was in the mood to go see a movie in the theater just to be basically entertained by film. I tend to enjoy film for film's sake. So I was expecting something stupid, maybe storyline-wise at least, sort of along the lines of the previous 3 Transformers movies. And even by those metrics, I was incredibly disappointed by this film.
It really is a shame, isn't it? Because the first Transformers movie, I didn't want to see. I liked Transformers as a kid, and I was never the biggest fan of them. It was more so I liked the toys than anything else.
And the concept is fun, too.
Yeah, the concept is so cool for a little kid, because you're just like, if you like
one thing that turns into another thing and has a gun.
Right.
Like swords and stuff, yeah.
If it didn't have the guns and stuff, it wouldn't be as interesting. Because then, it's a truck. Okay, well, I'm not big on trucks, so who cares if it's a robot truck?
With, like, proton blaster, so.
But a robot truck with a freaking machine gun, yeah. You just got me sold on that. But I liked the toys as a kid. I watched the animated stuff every once in a while. I had one of the animated movies.
Beast Wars TV show. Did you ever see any of that?
Beast Wars? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest computer animated shows I can remember seeing. But even that, I mean, that's a fun concept. That was Transformers-centric, it was all about their own world.
Yeah, and if you got into that as a kid, you typically end up wanting to see these movies as adults, because I love superhero movies.
Yeah.
And even the upcoming Terminator movie, Terminator 2 is my favorite movie of all time, and
Sure, sure.
Terminator 3 was one of the biggest disappointments of my entire life.
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. I
Yeah.
feel obligated to apologize about that.
Right. I think
I had nothing to
everybody
do with it, but
associated with the
still.
movie should apologize, like for the rest of their lives, just
Yeah.
on their deathbed, like their final words are like, "Sorry about Terminator 3."
See what Genesis does for everybody, but anyway, Transformers.
Right. So, when you see movies like that that are based off of targeting towards the kids that are out now
Hmm.
and the more so like teenager or adults that grew up with it as a kid,
Yeah,
that kind of changes your perspective. And being a huge fan of like Spider-Man and everything, that makes me enjoy those movies more. But Transformers was something where I liked it a lot as a kid, but not enough to be a big Transformers kid.
sure.
So when the movie first came out and I saw the first trailer, I was just like, what the hell? Like, they're going to do a Transformers movie? That can't be good. I'm not going to bother seeing this. And a couple
Right.
friends of mine dragged me to see it, and I walked out of the movie going, fuck, that actually was really good. Like, surprisingly good.
Sure.
It's not the best movie of all time, but a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, no, the first one has. I mean, I remember the first time because I saw Transformers late. I didn't see them in the theaters. I saw the first Transformers movie in its entirety, probably about I don't know 6, maybe 7 months ago. And I remember watching early on in the movie that scorpion-like transformer leap out of the desert sand at the whatever United States military forces there were there, and being pretty enthralled by that. And I remember thinking by the end of that film, had that movie just been like Decepticons versus the United States military, it would have been incredible.
Hmm.
Um, but even so, you got to get the friendlier stuff in there. You got to get Optimus and the good guys, and they don't kill other Transformers, and you got to try and fit it in there. But my only complaint with the first movie, which yeah, I am entertained by for sure, is kind of how goofy it gets. You spend $20 million on this one shot where Optimus and his fellow Autobots, the heroes of the film, are stepping over hedges, going, "Oops, my bad."
Right.
And it's like, really, you spent a substantial chunk of your budget on a stupid gag. Now, granted, later films kind of I don't know if improved is the right word, but changed that formula where it became a little more self-serious. But I don't know. There is a sense of fun that is kind of missing from this film, at least after, especially a certain character is incinerated. I don't know how else to qualify his death.
Right. Yeah, so I liked the first one. The second and the third, well, the second one, I was like, man, they really took a step back with the twins and,
Sure,
kind of like pulling
human
out
transformer.
racist Transformers and
Oh,
stuff,
yeah,
and a lot of the jokes of like people humping each other, like the robot humping the Transformer. Okay, the
there was a
Transformer
lot of
fans are
bizarre
mad that I
stuff.
said robot, but
Yeah, for sure.
um, that's the kind of stuff that I was just like, man, that's a shame. And the third one sort of did the same thing. So I figured with number four here, they had a chance. They realized their mistakes. They probably fixed them. Probably got some
Oh,
passionate writers on board. Apparently, and I didn't notice this until after I saw the movie. And if I would have noticed this ahead of time, I might have thought twice about seeing it in the theaters because that's $23 that I wasted.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
apparently, the writer on this movie,
Aaron Kruger.
yeah, he was the writer for number two and number three, not number one.
Interesting.
So I was like, damn, if I had figured that out, I would have realized the guy who screwed up the second and third one screwed up the fourth one. Because, man, this movie sucked.
It's in a different kind of way though. Like by the time I'd seen the second one, I was fully prepared for it to be terrible because I'd heard, every possible critic, even, some, more popular, more rather populous, Rotten Tomato critics, kind of like, yeah, I just go to see it for the action. I was expecting it to be absolutely terrible, and so I was somewhat pleasantly surprised when it wasn't as shitty as I thought it was going to be. This movie, this current movie, Age of Extinction, is shittier than I thought Revenge of the Fallen was going to be. I mean, it is. I completely agree with you, Tony. Absolutely terrible. It fails almost across the board at being a film.
It really is just unbearable almost.
Yeah.
Midway through the movie, I think it was like the second big action sequence. The one where, God, I can't even remember like some of the character names.
Is it
Where
when the
Mark
government comes to
Wahlberg.
claim Optimus from the farm?
No, not that one. But the biggest one that comes after that, the one where they get the gun, I think it like right around that. No,
Oh,
actually,
okay. When they're on board the ship.
it might be that one. I'm not even I'm losing track of how terrible this movie was. The bad
Yeah,
scene before the
it was
bad
one of
one,
the
or before
scenes.
the other bad one, like whatever the second biggest action scene was. By the time that was over, I was just like, okay, the movie's done. And then it was like, oh, there's like a fucking hour left or something.
Well, even though I mean, a lot of people come to see these Michael Bay productions because of the typically quality level of action they expect to receive.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm a big fan of, I kind of hate to admit this point, but The Rock and Pain and Gain, even, I think those are two pretty quality Michael Bay films, where either the story makes sense or he tapped into something that made things work. But this one, I think even the action is more or less incomprehensible. I mean, I have trouble determining what characters are in what space and time. It seems like there's no attention paid to any semblance of either filmmaking language or editing technique. I mean, it's just like a character appears here because, sure, we need a badass shot of some visual effects. We need to see Bumblebee machine gunning his counterpart, whatever his name was, Stryker or something. Stinger
Stinger,
at that point, yeah.
one of the few names that I can remember from this movie.
Yes.
So plot structure wise, if we can call it that,
Yeah, there was one.
there's a lot of flaws. I mean, we're gonna break down all these flaws back and forth. I have a series of notes here. I'm gonna bounce around, I'm sure, but the first note that I have is overcomplicated. And that's not
Absolutely.
something that I usually complain about when it comes to movies, because I like a long movie and I like
Sure.
something that's got a lot of weaves and twists and turns and everything like that. But this
Yeah.
one just seemed like they threw a bunch of plot points out there for the sake of trying to make it seem like it was better.
Yeah, I didn't get a sense of interconnectedness between the scenes in this movie. I feel like each one was kind of like, okay, here's another thing that we have to worry about. Like, here's another plot point because this is a long ass movie, and we need to throw more things at the audience.
Yeah,
Here,
like if
here now we're talking about Transformium. Now we're talking about the Transformers made for the U.S. military. Now we're talking about these quote unquote knights that are on board lockdown ship for some reason.
yeah, like the night things.
Yeah,
What in the hell are the nights?
I don't know. All of a sudden, they just started talking about knights. They don't even name Grimlock, who is a huge part of the marketing, as I recall.
Yeah, there's no reference to the fact that they are Dinobots. They never
Yeah,
call them that in the movie, as far as I can remember.
like they are dinosaurs, and I suppose they are bots in as much as they are Transformers. So, yeah, sure, Dinobots. But yeah, you're right. They're never identified. They're never individually. I think at one point, the John Goodman robot Hound calls one of them Spike, but I don't know if that's a nickname because of the nature of that character, or if it is actually the Transformers name.
It might be the actual name, but then again, you never know when it comes to these. I mean, why would an alien call himself Sideswipe and stuff?
Especially if they're 65 million years old. I mean, why would they even use English?
Right?
I mean, maybe that's a little nitpicky, but that occurred to me at one point. Like, why would this thing call itself Spike or Grimlock when it was based off not a car design, but a dinosaur design?
And they start this movie off with the idea of the Dinobots, and they discover the, I guess you could call it like metal fossil of,
The Transformium.
yeah, and then literally they don't come back to that until three-quarters of the way through the movie.
Yeah,
So you drop all semblance of a plot from the opening scene until later on where they can bring it back, and then it all becomes why. Now the Transformium thing, okay, if you want to try to make up a plot idea where somebody came, whoever it was, because they don't establish who it was in the movie. I don't know if that's them attempting to make it to where we go see Transformer 5 because of this great mystery, because that's not going to do it.
yeah, great
Or if
mystery.
they just dropped the plot point because they were just like, ah, we got enough. Um,
We have 165 minutes to fill. Let's see what we can do.
and we need to get two more action sequences in here, so
Yeah.
screw the plots. But the idea of the transformium thing, and you can turn biological life into the metal of the Transformers or whatever. Okay, I'd buy that. In
Sure,
this
I
kind of
accept.
universe, it
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And that could have been an interesting plot because they could have made an entire movie of humans wanting to become Transformers.
There was no focus though. That was the thing. Like it was literally just a MacGuffin. People were worried about it, not and only at the end for what it could possibly do.
Hmm.
I mean, only at the end did they start talking about, oh yeah, if they detonate this in a city, it could, kill millions of people. Sure, that's fine, but I mean, you don't talk about that. I mean, you don't mention the seed even until 2/3 of the way through the movie, I feel like, and then you mention what it can do during the climax. There's no way to build up any sort of tension at that point.
Right.
I mean, we understand that Mark Wahlberg's going to come out of this unscathed. His daughter and boyfriend are going to come out of this unscathed. The bad guy is going to be destroyed to some degree.
And Megatron will, still hang out there.
And yeah, he'll be back for the sequel. And I don't mind that ending. It's just that was by that point in the movie, in this long movie, it was kind of the last straw. Like it was the last thing that keep track of, and I couldn't even be bothered to feel like, okay, yeah, this has some bearing on how I'm supposed to feel about the climax right now.
One other thing about the overcomplication about it and all those kind of plot points is I got the feeling that they tried too hard to be dark.
I agree.
Like they took the criticism before of the other movies being too comedic, and they were like, oh, okay, well, we're going to throw some stupid jokes in there, but to make up for it, we're going to have people burned to death. And,
yeah.
Like it was being a little like...
Yeah, apparently dark to Michael Bay and Lorenzo de Bonaventura means we're going to have John Goodman's robot Hound, swear every other line and start capping fellow robots in the head.
Yeah.
I mean, it got kind of violent by the end, Like the John Goodman robot killed that alien life form on lockdown ship for no reason other than it slimed on his face.
And it could have been like this rare specimen, the last of its kind.
Yeah, you never know. I feel like that's just, kids are going to come away with being like, oh yeah, that Hound character was so badass because he killed that unique species of life form that was in the galactic zoo on lockdown ship.
Right. Be like, oh, that dog just did something to me. I'm going to go shoot it like Hound did.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, shut up, bitch, or whatever,
right.
Whatever it is, some pithy quote.
And another thing about trying to keep it like dark and switching it up and all that, that I was just like, I don't want to see this. It was like Transformers and stealth mode throughout the movie. Like they didn't have these, this sense of like heroism. It was like a couple of them hanging out and fighting against the odds, and
they kind of succumb to the idea. I mean, even Optimus, part of his, if you can call it a character arc, part of his thing is to realize that, or in this movie at least, apparently that sometimes you'd have to kill. Like that's what he seems to acknowledge in this film, that Optimus is willing to, get this new sword and start stabbing robots through the Allspark.
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and have him kill some people in the movies, okay, that's fine, but you don't need to have like the I don't know, like the Suicide Squad version of Transformers, basically. Yeah. And be like, okay, Bumblebee, you're playing Captain Boomerang here, and Optimus, you're Deadshot, and Amanda Waller is Kelsey Grammer, and all.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that I had written down when it comes to the plot that I just, specifically, there's one quote in the movie that made me just go, you know what? I give up on this fucking movie. And it's at the very end. I can't remember her name, the girl's name.
Tess or something?
I don't know. I think I have my notes here. Tessa.
It is Tessa? Okay.
Yeah. She says one of the stupidest lines I have heard anybody say in any of these movies, and that's including stupid jokes from the parents, who actually liked the parents in the first 3 movies. I thought that they were pretty endearing characters, but it's worse than anything that Megan Fox says. Nothing compares to this.
I'm sure I've forgotten it. What is it?
Mark Wahlberg says, "Let's go home, honey," and she responds with, "We don't have a home. It blew up." And just to test,
I forgot about that.
Just to test that I wasn't like looking at this through too cynical of a scope, I said to my mom, who doesn't watch any of these movies, that there was this terrible line in the movie and whatever, and that this girl in the movie says, "We don't have a home, it blew up," and she goes, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And I start explaining it, and she goes, "Oh, she's like 17 in the movie? I thought that this was like a 5-year-old saying this line." So, how do you write a line like this? You couldn't have said something like, "Let's go home, honey," and she says something like, "But Dad, we don't have a home anywhere." Or I mean, not anywhere, anymore.
No, even that's a better line.
Right, or like,
where like, "No, Dad, it blew up."
Yeah. Don't you remember, Dad?
Don't you remember?
House go boom boom.
Yeah. For me, it's funny you mentioned that because I have a similar experience. There was at one point, I mean, I have to give some props to Stanley Tucci because he is so good. I think he elevates any scene he's in just because he's an excellent actor. I mean, even though he's given a terrible script, just by the nature of his talent, he makes those scenes better. But it's the one point when he's yelling at his staff for not making the Galvatron robots or Stinger robots work. Those Transformers, like they're not responding as they should be, and he starts slapping the whiteboard behind him that has all these complicated mathematical equations on it, and he yells algorithms, and then he takes a beat and he yells math. And later on in the film, he does something similar, and he yells science. And it's like the script is yelling at the audience that these things are supposed to work. Transformium works because of science. Transformium works because of math.
Right.
It's like saying that Tony Stark's arc reactor, the one that supposedly powers an electromagnet that keeps the shrapnel from reaching his heart and shredding it into pieces. It's like saying that works because of reasons.
Right.
Like that's kind of like it's interesting, and it's a plot point worth developing to explain how humans have been able to develop Transformers on their own terms, even if you have to use a stupid element by the name of transformium, which, by the way, is almost as terrible as unobtainium.
Right.
I mean, these are things worth talking about. These are things that make science fiction interesting. It's not just, which, I would argue Transformers is a science fiction story in a lot of ways,
Right.
Especially the way they've made it, with Transformers being effectively aliens. You want to know how these things work so you can stop worrying about it and then turn your brain off. You need a justification first, I feel like, before you can turn your brain off and accept the action scenes.
At least a better justification than just like equations.
Yeah.
And
algorithms, math,
work, money, you get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
You do job, you get money.
It's just the worst kind of storytelling laziness.
So, do you have any other notes that are just generalized plot kind of structure things that we can talk about before we start breaking down the characters and then kind of, piggybacking off of that with plot?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I would say, again, I may have mentioned this earlier, but this film, I think, even does away with any semblance of traditional filmmaking language. I mean, there were times when I wasn't certain how a car or a character got from this position to the next position in the very next edit. I mean, I know Michael Bay movies move quickly, but I've seen him make, I've watched other Michael Bay movies, and even those had a better grammar, filmmaking wise, how shots relate to each other or whatnot, than this one did. I mean, it was almost like he was dared to make the shittiest movie he could that would still make all the money in the world. And if he was in fact dared that, he succeeded.
Isn't that a shame? Like, and then this movie makes so much money, and you got these like struggling independent people that really know how to make films, and they get jack shit because,
How much did the Grand Budapest Hotel make? And this thing made $300 million over the weekend.
Right. And I mean, I'll say this right now, just because a lot of people are gonna assume that this is the point of view.
Michael Bay hate fest.
Right. I think Michael Bay gets so much worse of a reputation than he deserves.
Sure, I agree with that.
The Island, I think, is a freaking amazing movie.
The Island is a lot of fun. Yeah, I agree with that. The Rock is one of my favorite action movies of all time. I thought Pain and Gain was actually a really fun movie as well.
I haven't checked those two out, but I've heard good things about them.
The Rock, I have a soft spot for Sean Connery, but it's also a great Nicolas Cage performance as well.
Which Nicolas Cage is totally hit or miss, but even with the misses are total hits because they're just so ridiculous. So, The Island is one of my favorite movies of all time. Again, it's not, an Oscar-winning movie or something like that, but it shows that Michael Bay is more than just the typical joke of explosions and stuff. But man, this movie, I can't defend this at all. And
I'm right there with you.
When we start breaking down the characters in a second, that's going to get worse and worse. Cause,
go to town, man, because I was expecting the characters in this movie to more or less be one note in the first place, to have bare motivations, bare, emotional needs, whatever, in service of hopefully, the grandiose and larger action over the course of the film. But that, again, even that wasn't good enough to justify the sketchy ass characters we were given in this film.
Yeah, I miss Shia LaBeouf and
I don't know about that.
Josh Duhamel.
Josh Duhamel, I'll miss.
Yeah, I liked his character a lot in the movie. I actually would have been fine
Sure.
if they would have made him the main character of this and just kept that going.
Sure. Yeah, I actually think that would have been interesting. I was wondering if that was going to be the case because I knew very little about this when I sat down in the theater ready to watch it.
Hmm.
And I was wondering, yeah, if Josh Duhamel, because I had seen at least the first two. I can't remember. I've seen pieces of the third, but not all of it all the way through. But I was wondering if he was going to be the one to sort of carry the story outside of, or if they were going to use him as connective tissue rather, because I knew Mark Wahlberg is sort of the new face of this franchise. What is hopefully going to be for Michael Bay and again Lorenzo de Bonaventura, a new trilogy. Um, but yeah, no Josh Duhamel. That was disappointing.
Now the Shia LaBeouf thing, I don't know if I would have actually put him in the movie because of the way that he's been acting lately and stuff. But just in the first three movies, at least he was somebody who could kind of see develop some personality traits.
Yeah, sure.
And nobody in this movie was endearing at all.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
can't tell you anything about any of these characters. They have no character traits.
I mean, the most entertaining character, the I don't know what it was, the brother-in-law or
The friend,
yeah, the surfer bro kind of guy.
yeah, T.J. Miller's character, who
Yeah, they
was
killed him off
named
within the
Lucas.
first 28 minutes of the film. Maybe the first 35 minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
He was the only one who seemed like he was having fun with stuff.
yeah,
Now, Mark Wahlberg is definitely in self-serious mode for this movie, probably because Michael Bay told him to be. And yeah, the actress playing Tessa, whose name I'm forgetting, is also fine, and the Jack Rayner character is fine. But it's almost like watching the characters in the new Star Wars trilogy. They are saying words, but it's not like they actually know what they mean.
they should get the same person who wrote the lines from Stanley Tucci, and they could just be words, action scenes, anger.
Exactly.
So the main character of this movie, Cade Yeager.
What
Give
is
me a break with the fucking name.
Yep.
That like some dude's writing this script, and he's like, man, I don't know what to name my character. Can you have me a beer? Which one? Just give me a Jaeger. Dude, how about Jaeger? Yeah, we'll get a case of Jaeger. No, not a case of Jaeger. Cade
Cade.
Yeager.
Yeah.
Terrible name.
Oh,
And he's just generic action hero guy.
yep.
I'm supposed to believe that he's an inventor?
Yeah, that is a bit of a stretch. I mean, at that point in the movie, I was still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but that was because it was still within the first 40 minutes of it, and I didn't realize, before I realized how long it was going to stretch itself out.
And he was a failed inventor. So at the very least,
Completely as failed can be.
right? At least you could justify it by like, well, he's not a good one.
Yeah, so of course he knows how to use alien technology by the midpoint of the movie.
Immediately picks it up and it's just like, how do I do this? Oh, here's how I do it. I'll just go save the day. But
He finds a dusty old truck in an abandoned theater, like a stage theater for some reason.
yeah, no, and the guy's like, what truck or whatever? The truck you parked here?
Yeah,
That you drove through the theater?
I mean, it's effectively the same kind of plot point that, Bumblebee occurred by in the first Transformers movie that, oh, hey, I found this used car, so here you go, have it.
Yeah, like
It
what?
happens to be a Transformer.
Imagine the paperwork.
Yeah.
Like that right there cuts the whole movie out. Okay, well, how do you sign over the insurance forms and stuff like that? Oh, I can't because this isn't my car. Okay, well, you just lost your practice, and the kid doesn't have a car anymore.
And so, yeah, then the Cade Yeager character who is Mark Wahlberg, is pursued by this special ops team that goes by the code name Cemetery Wind, which really sounds like it's trying too hard.
it's like some username for some emo kid writing
Yeah.
poetry.
Yeah, I mean, somebody
Cemetery
really
Wind. It's
wants
so
their
dark.
night elf to be taken seriously on World of Warcraft, so they name it Cemetery Wind, which itself sounds like it was a Wu-Tang Clan rap name generator.
Some DLC map for
Yeah.
World of Warcraft Cemetery Wind.
So yeah, Cemetery Wind, and that's Titus Welliver. That's the I think that's the actor's name who heads that thing, and he's a main
Angry-
antagonist, kind of like the Pale Orc in the Hobbit movies. He's like the guy that Mark Wahlberg has to fight by the end.
angry military generic dude who lost his sister. Which that's
Yeah.
okay, an okay
Sure.
plot.
Yeah, I can accept
You know,
that.
You have this big war going on in Chicago. A lot of people die. Okay.
One of them
And
gets served short.
angry military guy lost his sister, so he's going to be
He's
furious
gonna
about
be
it.
angry military guy.
I'll buy into that. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, I'll buy into the idea that people are anti-Autobot because of
Sure.
this. Because that happens. I mean, we've got people in wars that are fighting for America, and just because they're of a certain race, people are against them and stuff. You know, you could be Middle Eastern and have lived in America your entire life, but because we have some kind of an Iraqi war, apparently you're the enemy or whatever. So that happens. I'll buy that too.
Well, and despite all that, despite our, and especially their caution in looking after Autobot or any Transformer activity, the climax of the movie still sees, I get, what is it, Beijing or Hong Kong by the end?
I don't think that. I think that they kind of just sort of went. It's Asian town,
I
and it
mean,
was
yeah, I
like,
mean, either way, it just gets shredded
right.
by not only, the main Autobot Transformers who are trying to defend the city, but also the 50 some odd Transformers that Stanley Tucci, under the guise of military funding, created that are being controlled by Galvatron, who, spoiler alert, is Megatron reincarnated.
So we got Cade Yeager here, generic action hero guy with no real pulse behind him.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
that's what they're thinking.
his daughter Tessa, who is apparently speaks like a 5 year old, and
Ill bait for this movie.
attractive girl. Give her that kind of credit too, but that's not something that's going to make me like the movie. If I wanted to look at a hot chick, I'd just type on any website, a million websites that are on the internet, or look at my girlfriend or something.
Sure.
So if that was the big thing of we need a hot chick too, you got the hot chick, but you didn't get an actress and you didn't get a character.
Yeah.
And then her boyfriend Shane. So we have Shane and Cade. I'm surprised we don't have Jaden and Caden and Hayden and
Yeah.
you know.
Sounds way too close.
And why's he got an accent?
Because he's from Ireland for reasons.
They're just like we want an Ireland kind of map going on here. And another thing that pisses me off about his character, his intro scene is him being a badass,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then for the entire rest of the movie, he's a pussy.
well, yeah, because he can't overtake the total badassery of Cade Yeager. It really bothered me when there's a point when they are on lockdown, the sort of main antagonists, the main Transformer antagonist ship, Cade and, what was his name? Shane,
Shane, yeah.
are infiltrating it to try and get the daughter, Cade's daughter, off the ship, who was accidentally taken hostage. And he has this big Transformer laser gun, and Mark Wahlberg's counting on, okay, we're gonna attack him in 3, 2, and then Shane, Jack Rayner, throws his gun away and shrieks out, "I surrender! I surrender!" It's like you're only doing this to make Mark Wahlberg look more impressive. You're
Right.
not giving this character a chance to do anything. You're wasting this potentially strong moment for a joke, for a gag.
Hmm. And I could be fine with the idea that if, all right, suspension of disbelief, this Katie Yeager guy is some kind of a great inventor,
Sure.
and he might be able to figure out the weapon, and this Shane guy can't. Okay, so why not have him go, all right, we're gonna attack in 3, 2, 1, and the guy goes, wait a minute, I don't know how to use this, and then he starts attacking, and he's like, ah, crap, what do I do? He still could have gotten a gag out of it
You have a
without him looking
character
like a
like
complete
that.
idiot.
That's something they could share
Yeah.
instead of just making the guy out to be totally ineffective.
Yeah, that was a real disappointment. So you ended up having both the daughter and her boyfriend are complete idiots that are useless throughout this entire movie.
Yep.
They're just there to
Yeah,
almost
except
get
that she
killed.
could be his navigator, apparently.
Yeah, that's a real they really spent a lot of time dealing with that too. I can't believe that they had done this because they could have just had Mark Wahlberg. If you wanted Mark Wahlberg that bad, he could have been a single guy living by himself, and that's it. He didn't need to have the whole
Sure.
my hot daughter is doing whatever
But
and
you're trying to hit all of the demographics possible, I guess. Like, you know what part cracked me up also is when Mark Wahlberg's telling her about, how I was your age, I was in high school, and your mom and I got pregnant. And they cut to that insert of the photograph of Cade Yeager and his wife holding, with a baby between them. And Mark Wahlberg looked exactly the same that photograph when he was supposedly a senior in high school,
Right?
as he does right now when he's been inventing these awful robots that don't work.
He had like slightly
We
shorter
could have at
hair.
least shaved Marky Mark.
Right? You couldn't have taken a picture of him in high school and
Yeah,
photoshopped it. You can build Philip Seymour Hoffman now that he's dead and put him in the Mockingjay Part 2, and you can't Photoshop a still picture.
yeah. I mean you're talking about the characters in this movie. They are the barest sketches of needs or whatever it is that you might need to have a character arc. The barest sense of that. And the Transformers, forget about it. No sense of character to them at all.
Oh, before we get into the Transformers too, because there's a lot about that. One other thing that I was thinking about throughout the movie that it annoyed me because it was just so unnecessary with Shane and Tessa.
Mm.
Did they really need to make a whole like statutory rape thing going
Well,
on?
they explain it. That's why they have that whole scene about the Romeo and Juliet laws, so people won't call them out for it.
Right, like
Even though you
couldn't
probably could have avoided the whole thing if you just made her 19.
right, like she
Instead,
could have been
you know,
like she just turned 18
and you can
and
still have like maybe she needs to stay in college instead of get into college. Maybe they need additional financial aid to keep her in her classes and in her school rather than send her there in the first place. It's not that big. It's not even that different a character thing.
no, she could have that could have actually even been one of the reasons why she defies his parenting. She could have been like, I'm 18 now, I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah,
But no, instead it's like you realize she's 17 and he's just kind of like, it's cool, dude. Like,
because of again reasons.
it's almost like the people working on this movie were like, let's put out a little propaganda that it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. That's the law. That's how it goes.
Well, I'm
But at
sure
the
that
same time,
appeals to the 18 and or the 17 and under set that are going to see this movie or that have already seen this movie.
right. And it just seems like they added that in there because they wanted to add that in there, not that it just happened.
Yeah.
Because he could have been 18 and just a hot shot driving his car. He got lucky and got this kind of endorsement deal or whatever the hell that they talked about, then
It
abandoned
could have been
immediately.
any number of things, but it was what it was, and what it was terrible.
Yeah, that was just atrocious. And we had a couple other characters that were a part of the human side. We already talked about generic angry military guy.
Yep, Titus Welliver.
We've got Lucas T.J. Miller, who is comic relief, and then boom, a skeleton.
Yeah.
That was pretty brutal. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, it was sad to see him go just because he was the only thing that had made the movie, smile worthy up until that point.
Pretty much the best part of the movie was when he hits himself with the or wait, does he? I don't even remember if he hits himself now with the football. Or when he gets hit with the
Yeah,
football.
he throws the ball and it like ricochets off the.
Yeah, that was like the best part of the movie. That was in the first like 10 minutes. We also have Stanley Tucci, who we were talking about earlier. Probably my favorite character.
Sure, and I think that has as much to do with Stanley Tucci's ability as how the character is written. Probably more to do with Stanley Tucci's ability than how the character is written.
Yeah, if that was just a random person, they wouldn't have brought anything to it, I'm sure.
But we also have Kelsey Grammer as, clandestine evil CIA head or something like that.
Angry guy who did a lot of work and is mad that he's not a billionaire or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
So fuck Transformers.
Yep.
Because why not?
Yeah, that's effectively how that went.
We've got the blonde explorer chick who was totally useless, and I don't even know if they said her name in the movie.
I'm trying to remember. I know she was in Underworld and Tristan and Any Souls. I'm trying to remember the actress' name. She's escaping me right now.
Sophie something?
Yeah, Sophie something.
I want to say Sophie Miles.
Yep, that's it.
Sophia Miles?
Sophia Miles. That's
Okay, yeah. Yeah, she's like the opening of the whole movie, and then doesn't show up until the end. And when she shows up at the end, it's
Yeah,
just
then
kind
she
of
kind
like,
of
what's
disappears in favor of the Bing 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 Lee.
Bing Bing Bing
Yes.
Bing Lee? That I hate to make fun of other cultures and stuff, but every time I say that, I have to laugh.
Well, I mean, you have to maybe chuckle about it. Bing.
You're right. Just
But
Bing Bing Lee sounds like it should be one of the other Transformers or something. Which, by the way, I don't have much to say about Bing Bing Lee, do you?
No, not at all. She was fine. She was perfectly fine.
Yeah, she was just, background kind of person or whatever. She's the Tyrese part of the movie. Just another person
I
to.
may have a bit of a problem with the Asian gentleman that helped beat up
Oh
the
yeah.
assailant when Bing Bing Lee was occupied fighting other dudes. It was like she was getting beaten up by this larger guy, and this guy that Stanley Tucci had been quipping to during the scene, who doesn't even speak English, because he was Asian, seemed to know martial arts, and came out to Bing Bing Lee's aid and beat the snot out of this guy, and then just walked away.
Yeah, like what's he fucking Ryu or something?
Like, yeah, who knows? I don't know. Maybe he was supposed to be Tony Jaa, and he was unavailable because he was shooting On Back 2 or The Protector 2, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, talk about random.
That was so odd. And I actually would have been fine with them following that character the rest of the movie because he seemed more interesting too. But then we have the Autobots, and
So we do.
I can't tell any of them apart outside of the color.
Yeah,
But I
they're
can
clearly named.
tell that they really just took that level of ridiculousness with the first movie where they had Jazz and he was like a jive talking, what's up, fool, and all that, and everybody made fun of it. And
Yeah.
then it got worse in the second one with the twins. And then the third one, they seemed like they kind of balanced it out, and they didn't have as much of that going on. This one, it was like Japanese Autobot, let's get Ken Watanabe. Fat Autobot, let's get John Goodman.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break, man. That's the fan cast kind of thing that you'd see on, I don't know, comicbookmovie.com or something like that. Throw out reference to one of the people that I write for.
I am kind of disappointed that Ken Watanabe was a Transformer in this movie because I mean, he just seems better than that. But perhaps I was wrong.
Like midway through, I'm sitting to myself thinking, sounds a lot like Ken.
Like Ra's al Ghul there.
Yeah, I'm kind of expecting him to say Gotham is beyond saving, or I'm
Must.
still dreaming, or something out of Inception. But I'm not sure, and if I bring this up and it's not him, I'm gonna seem racist. So I'll just kind of okay. And then I'm thinking to myself, that sounds a lot like John Goodman. But now I'm thinking,
He was the one that tripped me up more.
like, is this John DiMaggio? Because he has a really good John
Yeah,
Goodman kind of voice, which I think he's actually one of the other ones in the movie.
I wouldn't put it past him. He's got quite a career.
Right. They should have Billy West do one. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Um, so, I'm thinking that it's those two, and then finally, when it gets to the end of the movie and I can see the credits, and it was just like, oh, okay, they actually are. Like, they didn't try at all.
Even as you get to it, though, I mean, is there an antagonist in this movie? Because I guess it's Kelsey Grammer, but Stanley Tucci turns around. He turns a new leaf by the end. Galvatron is kind of barely in the climax because he's not the focus of the action. It's all of the other Transformers that Stanley Tucci made through KSI Holdings are the ones who are fighting them.
I guess it's Lockdown plus Kelsey Grammer.
I suppose, yeah, yeah. I guess those are the two people they're fighting at the end.
Because Galvatron was pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. Even at the end, he shows up after all his like bots are dead, and he goes, he snarls and he's like, "You haven't seen the last of me, Optimus Prime," and then he walks out of the shot, and that's it. That's the last you've seen of Galvatron slash Megatron.
Hmm. And it's like, he died in the first one. He got beat to shit in the second one.
Yep.
He died in the third one.
And here he is again.
I like Megatron, so it's okay that they brought him back. And I knew a little bit about Galvatron ahead of time, that he was a reincarnation sort of Megatron. So I thought that was cool. But uh, you bring him in here, and Galvatron has like no fights really. He has the one fight, and then he
Yeah,
kind of just walks away. And
yeah. He kind of just delegates his fights to his minions.
yeah,
Otherwise,
so that was disappointing because I was expecting to see more Galvatron.
yeah.
And Lockdown would have been cool if the whole movie didn't suck around him. Like if they had a better movie to support the character, that could have been cool, a bounty
Yeah, I
hunter
agree.
kind of thing. Which why not just do that? They could have made this movie a lot simpler and not bothered with the Transformium element if they could have just made it after Chicago. Everybody's got this anti-Autobot thing going on, so the government's going after them, Uh,
with the help of this bounty hunter transformer.
yeah, they think
Yeah,
that they can trust this one Decepticon kind of a guy,
yeah,
and
I thought,
all the people from Nest before, like Josh Duhamel's character and all that, they could have been the good military people going
yeah, like a
against them.
secret service for the transformers that are left.
Yeah, there you go. There's a better movie immediately. We just did
I'm
it.
really that would have been something I would be interested to watch. Is how the military is either trying to keep their use of the Autobots quiet or just trying to keep their existence, like sort of like the Incredibles. How they try and keep those heroes quiet. They try and keep their existence muted. Um, that would again be interesting, especially if there was they were trying to protect it and they have no choice. But as soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in, kind of a Godfather
Right?
element.
Actually, I think Godfather 3 is better than this movie.
Oh yeah, no question. There are most movies are better than this movie.
Right.
I would hazard to say.
So, you get all these characters locked down, and the Stinger and these other kind of random ones. Can't
Yep.
tell any of them apart outside of you've got
Outside of
Optimus
toy
Prime,
boxes.
Bumblebee, and then a Dinobot. Not called Dinobot.
Yep.
So that was a huge disappointment. And another thing that really bothered me about this movie when it comes to the characters, one of the main plot points is the idea of a soul.
Sure.
And none of these characters have souls. I'm supposed to care about Tessa? She's a bitch. And she's stupid. And there's no
Yeah.
reason for me to get worried when she's dangling on cables. If she
It
died,
just isn't like I don't. She wants to be free and go to college, but she also likes the relationship she has with her dad. So like her arc is to find a middle ground, I guess. But she doesn't. She kind of chooses her boyfriend by the end, and her dad's left by the wayside.
right, her
They
dad's
don't
just kind
really
of like,
resolve
well,
anything about their relationship. She's just like, yeah, I'm gonna ignore you in favor of Shane. Sorry, Kate Yeager.
Tessa Yeager. God, what an ugly name, too.
Yeah.
So these characters are just pointless, and I would have rather had seen a spin-off movie that has no Transformers in it that deals with Sam Witwicky's mom and dad going on a road trip than to watch any of these people deal with any of the Transformers.
Yep.
And when you end the movie, you end with Optimus Prime, one of the only characters that has actual character development in the movie, and he leaves Earth.
Yeah, where the hell did he get rockets, by the way?
Yeah, if he had rockets
Like,
this whole
at what
fucking
point did he
time, then
develop rocket boosters? Because the ability to fly would have been pretty helpful earlier on, and at almost any point during this film.
or any of the other movies.
Yes. All of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, I've remembered that I have rockets in my ankles. I'm going to fly now.
And I'm waiting, as a huge Simpsons fan, I'm waiting for all of the memes that are going to come out of Optimus Prime with the Poochie thing. I'm sorry, I have to go home now to my home planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, terrible characters, terrible plot to try to work with the characters, got nowhere. And uh, if you get rid of character and you get rid of plot, the only thing you're left with are the other things that are supposed to support it. The special effects, the music, the action sequences, and all that. What did you think about the action and the special effects throughout this movie?
Well, and this is the frustrating thing about these particular Michael Bay movies, the Transformers movies in particular, is by their very nature, they almost always have reliably excellent special effects, regardless of how they're used to tell the story, which, again, I will say is pretty terrible. The effects themselves, especially the almost kind of, if you've seen X-Men Days of Future Past, the Sentinel-like uh, sort of assembly of the Transformium man-made Transformers is really impressive. I mean, it's very lifelike, it's very real, it looks real. But the way, again, the shots are all put together, the way the film is assembled ruins their usage. They're, again, just any notion of filmmaking language is tossed out the window. It makes no sense. It's incomprehensible. And although it's pretty to look at from a visual effects standpoint, it doesn't serve the overall story.
And I saw this in 3D, did you?
No, I did not.
You saw the same movie that I did, basically.
Yeah, I did, but not in 3D. I just saw it in the standard 2D.
Yeah, I mean, there was not really much 3D going on throughout the movie that impressed me. That was actually a waste of money, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm
which has
sorry.
actually been happening a lot in a lot of movies that I've been seeing lately.
Well, yeah, I mean, 3D often is a waste of money. I mean, yeah, it depends on a number of factors, but especially because so many theaters these days are fake IMAX instead of real IMAX.
Hmm. Yeah, if I would have had a better time period to see this movie,
Yeah.
I probably would have gone to just the standard one because um, this 3D. I'm not the type of person who frowns upon 3D, nor am I the person who goes to see all the movies like that because the 3D itself is what's interesting to me.
Hmm.
I'll go see it if I think that that's something that they wanted to make a big point in the movie, but this one just it's not necessary, and that's a shame too because, like you said, I mean the special effects are good, but I can't see what's going on,
Yeah.
and it's nothing impressive that we haven't seen before.
On the score you mentioned, also, I mean, I have no. It's Steve Jablonsky again, I believe, who had also done the previous three movies, and I like his basic Transformer theme. That the one that was in I think the Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon trailers. Um, this one, however, felt to me like it was Hans Zimmer light, like it was Diet Dark Knight. It sounded to me like it was a direct lift from the Dark Knight films. The string section that with the kind of repetitive rhythm or melody rather, and yeah, I don't know, that did not impress me much either.
Yeah, I really, really like Jablonski and
Yeah, I mean
Hans Zimmer too.
he's
I
done
mean,
good stuff.
all the people that are all in that one group, I can't remember the name. I think it's Remote Control Productions. They all have a very similar style. Craig Armstrong is another one of them.
Hmm.
Gavin Greenaway is another. I like all that stuff. So the three Transformers movies before this, I have all the soundtracks because I love that main theme. This one was a disappointment. I
There was
couldn't.
no hint of that main theme.
Yeah, that like Arrival to Earth theme, that like da 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 da.
Even the action theme, the bum 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 bum
Yeah,
bum 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 bum. Yeah, I mean it was a totally new thing, which I respect the attempt to do something new. Like I'll never frown upon that. But again, it felt like Diet Dark Knight. I mean, that's the
yeah.
best way I can put it. It sounded like it was another attempt at redoing. It sounded like it was an attempt at redoing the Dark Knight score, and I found nothing compelling about it.
And that's something that bothers me a lot about a lot of sequels is when you take something that's already an established theme and you go against it. The
Yeah.
X-Men movies have done that, which
Yep.
that was actually one of the things I liked the best about Days of Future Past was they brought back
Hmm.
the
A lot of the
X-Men
old
United
singer
theme.
stuff. Yeah.
And even though I don't like that they changed the Amazing Spider-Man theme from the first movie, I like the second one better. So that was
So
like change is only good if it's
if it adds something.
change for the better.
Yeah.
Change just for the sake of it, it can end up being worse.
Yep.
So they could have changed the special effects around in this one. One thing I was reading said that they made the Autobots simpler, which I think I
Really?
actually kind of picked up during the movie that I could tell a little bit more of what was going on, but I still just can't tell the difference.
I mean, at some point, it's tough to say. What you've when they all look that good. When they go into slow mo all of a sudden when you do the speed ramping, it's tough to say what you've spent $20 million on or only $5 million on.
Right. Because most of this movie is just explosions.
It's
Like,
fake.
so the people that criticize Michael Bay and whatever about it's just about a bunch of explosions, it's just destructions and whatever.
they're they're born out in this film.
Yeah, this one I can't defend. This is just
Yeah.
a movie of things going boom and houses going boom and
And I
characters
can't even
talk
say
about it. Like,
it's action in an entertaining format. I enjoyed the first Transformers movie for what it is. I even enjoyed the second for what it is. This movie just left me angry. I mean, never in my life have I wanted 3 hours of my life back so badly.
and you know what else is bothering me about the action sequences in this? And I didn't realize it until after the movie had gotten about three-quarters of the way through. Um, they have all these big, massive spaceships, and the scale of them screws up the Autobots because now they don't feel like they're big and important characters.
Yeah, they've got this literally larger threat hanging over their heads.
Yeah, we're supposed to think that Chicago was this huge event because there were these spaceships blowing up buildings and stuff. And like
They're
you
pretty
said,
prominent in this film, though.
Beijing or China or
Hmm.
Japan or Tokyo or whatever it was,
It was either Beijing or Hong Kong.
it gets totally destroyed from these spaceships that are the size of entire cities.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to think that Optimus Prime looks like he's a big guy. He's a truck.
Hmm.
You've got a spaceship the size of a continent and a bunch of Autobots and Decepticons and stuff inside of that fighting each other. I've lost
Just
all
don't care
sense of
enough.
scale.
We just don't care enough about the central, if there are any emotional conflicts to lend any weight to that plot line. Maybe it would be cool if it is these tiny, these big Autobots that are huge to us fighting this even huger spaceship, but there's not enough to justify that drama. There's nothing that makes it more entertaining than just visual effects masturbation.
And if they do Unicron in the future,
Mm.
good lord.
I don't know Unicron.
Unicron is, I think, the size of a planet.
Oh,
So if that's where they're going with this, and we're gonna have freaking planets fighting each other,
I mean, that'd be amazing, but I can see where they would have difficulty
uh,
with it.
I did like one thing about the action compared to the other movies, though, and
What's that?
it's one of the only things I can give credit to. I did like how Mark Wahlberg could fight some of the Decepticons.
Sure, that actually was kind of refreshing to have a human that would be able to um, lend some weight into these struggles.
Right, he has an alien weapon, so it works
Service
against
base, yeah.
them.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, the military, they were fine trying to fight the Autobots in the first, not fight the Autobots, fight the Decepticons in the first movie.
But here you're fighting them with their own weapons.
Yeah, that
Yep.
okay, instead of just people running all the time, was cool.
Yeah.
Other
Yeah.
than that, though, total miss when it comes to the action sequences.
Yeah.
And special effects music, we touched upon that. Uh, there's one other thing as far as like extras kind of go, in my mind,
What's
that
that?
I wanted to bring out, and that was I didn't notice it until this movie, but now that I thought back about the other movies and even The Island, and I'm pretty sure Bad Boys 2, because that's one of the only other Michael Bay movies that I've seen. Michael Bay really likes the sun.
That he does.
He
Yeah.
really likes tan people in the sun and
Or
women that are
it's against the sun in the sky, or
yeah, like
yeah.
that sunset perfect angle kind of a thing. You got a sweaty tan,
That's
really
perfect
tan
magic
blonde girl
apparatus.
with pink lipstick and the sunset in the background and all that. I didn't notice that until this movie, and then I could not notice it the rest of the movie. And of
You will
course, at the
never.
very end, when everybody's oh, our house go boom boom and all that other kind of stuff, you've got like that perfect sun angle and all that.
Yeah, you will never look prettier than you do in a Michael Bay movie.
Right
That's
at
a
the end
vote
of a
as a
Michael Bay
tax, it's a
movie.
certainty.
So as far as like other extra kind of stuff that's going on, cinematography and background things going on and all that, what other stuff did you want to throw out there?
I mean, for me, it's all whatever. Everything in this movie is in service of making it worse than its predecessors. The filmmaker, or rather the cinematographer, I think, yeah, I'm sure he disagreed with some of Michael Bay's choices, but Michael Bay is Michael Bay, so he gets the final say, I'm sure, in how this movie is assembled. And yeah, I mean, I just the number of times that a car or characters in a car or characters outside the car just appear in one place and then reappear in another. It happens at least a half dozen times, and it's very frustrating to me because I know Michael Bay's better than that, or he can be rather better than that. I mean, there's no reason you should just abandon basic filmmaking technique to just in the name of being cool or being quote unquote badass.
It's almost like instead of having a director uh, piece these things together,
Hmm.
it was just like, okay, here's the action sequence. Give me a lot of cool action,
Yep,
and
it's like
the
he just had the
CGI will
bandwidth
figure itself
to
out.
shoot everything.
It's a real shame.
Yeah.
And so that kind of knocks all that stuff out. We should do a little breakdown here of hit or miss. So I think that we're gonna make this an easy one or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Plot, hit or miss.
Miss,
Writing, hit or miss.
miss,
Characters, hit or miss.
big miss.
Special effects,
I mean, hit. There's no denying him.
action sequences,
Hit and miss because yeah, the CGI is impressive, but they're put together almost incomprehensibly, and that's the miss.
music,
Miss.
cinematography.
I'll put that in the hit and miss category again because whoever, I can't remember the cinematographer's name, but not only did they have to contend with Michael Bay's wishes, but they probably had to keep their mouth shut as they were told, how their shots were going to be put together. So hit and miss, because some things are very nice, and again, you'll never look prettier than you do in a Michael Bay film, but other bits of this are just, there's no excuse for how badly they're put together.
And I'm going to go a miss all across the board
Sure.
because I was so bothered by this movie by the end of it. And
You just wanted it to end.
I got so many people. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, we've got quite a bit of roster uh, people on the Fanboys Anonymous team. And when I sent out the feelers of who wants to see Transformers and whatever, most of my responses that I got back were, "I'm not giving that movie any money." And by the end of this movie, I was thinking to myself, they got $23 out of me.
Yep, I was right there with you, man. I
And
was annoyed I had paid to see this movie.
never again.
Yep.
They lost me. I'm gonna watch the other ones, but I am not gonna pay for them.
Yeah, I
you know,
really hope.
Government can come down on me and try to say I'm saying that I'm streaming it. I'm not saying that. If a friend wants to pay for my ticket, they can do it. If they want to buy the movie and I'll borrow it off of them, they can do that. There's
But never again are you
no
going to shell
way,
out your own money to see one of these atrocities.
no way whatsoever. I would have spent more money on popcorn and just sat there and ate popcorn and watched the other people watching the movie, and I would have had more fun.
But
Because some
my
weird looking people.
best part of this movie for me was the Coke Icy I bought at the concession stand at the beginning of the entire experience. It was very refreshing, and that was the best part of the movie.
So overall, final thoughts: hit or miss for the movie? What do you think?
Absolute miss. Absolute miss.
And I'm definitely going with a miss there too. It makes Revenge of the Fallen look like they knew what the fuck they were doing.
Yep.
So the last thing we have to do here is just toss out some plugs there. Gabe, what are you working on now? You working on any articles? You got any other things you want to promote going on in your world?
Yeah, in the next day or two, next couple days, there should be an article coming out from my camp about 3 new quote-unquote villains that will be in the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice film. They've apparently added characters that are Morgan Edge, Amanda Waller, and do you remember the third villain, Tony?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I remember being really excited that Morgan Edge would pop up
It
because that
was
was so
it was an
odd.
assassin that they thought.
Oh, David Kane.
Yeah, David Kane, exactly. I wouldn't exactly call them villains. I would call them extra characters, but they all add interesting things to how they to the not only Batman versus the Superman mythology, but how they might try and build Justice League in the future. So look for that for me in the coming couple of days.
All right, guys, and remember to check out everything else that we have going on with all the podcasts and all the articles as well for fanboysanonymous.com. Check out the other episodes of Reviewpoint. And actually, if you like the Reviewpoint kind of concept and you want to watch some other episodes of the group meeting that we've done that were kind of the test run of Reviewpoint, we did some in the past for Amazing Spider-Man, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and so on and so forth. So it's basically the same kind of thing, just, different change of a title, a little bit change of the format. But we have other podcasts as well. We have the Daceman Show. We've got an upcoming edition of the For Real Movie Club, which is going to be dealing with patriotic movies, because we're recording this on July 4th.
Happy birthday, America.
We're going to be talking about The Patriot. We're going to talk about Air Force One, Invasion USA, some Chuck Norris movie, and Team America World Police.
That is a great lineup.
All these America type of movies. So stay tuned for that as well. If you are listening to this podcast beforehand, we're going to be doing that live on Mega Powers Radio on Sunday night, the 6th, if my math is correct. Yes. Math. Equations.
Science.
And if not, you can always check out the archive version on fanboysanonymous.com, as well as for all the other podcasts that we've got going on that I didn't mention because I'm losing track of all them by now.
There's a lot of them.
If you are interested in joining Fanboys Anonymous, either for the podcast or for the writing team or something else like that, go ahead, send us a message. We're always looking to get everybody to stand up and share with us. That's one of our mottos, because you guys are fanboys, we're fanboys, or fangirls for that matter. And that's the whole point. Get the community together either to support stuff or to bitch about stuff like this movie.
Yes, indeed.
So that does us in for this episode of Review Point. On behalf of everyone that couldn't be here tonight, as well as on behalf of Gabe, I am Tony Mango. Thank you for listening, shooting the breeze with us. We hope you had fun. We want to know what you think were the hits or misses of this movie, so leave those comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, send us some comments on something else if you're on iTunes or Stitcher. Subscribe to us, and we will see you next time. See you later, everybody.
Adios, everybody.